In the summer of 1969, the city of Cleveland woke to the news that one of its oldest neighbors was burning again. It had happened so many times before that most locals barely looked up from their coffee. The story ran on page 11 of the Plain Dealer, buried beneath national headlines about Vietnam and Apollo rockets. The mayor gave a short press conference. Firefighters cleaned their hoses, and life in the city moved on. But this time, something was different. Because that fire, the one nobody noticed at first, was about to start a movement that would change the country. Not because of how long it burned, not because of how much it destroyed, but because of what it said. That in the wealthiest, most industrialized nation in the world, a river could be so polluted, it caught fire. Not the docks, not the barges, the river, the Cuyahoga River. And this wasn't a fluke. It wasn't the first time. It wasn't even the worst. But it was the one that finally lit a match under the conscience of a nation. The Cuyahoga was never supposed to end this way. It began quietly, in springs and trickling creeks northeast of Akron, Ohio. For centuries it twisted its way north toward Lake Erie, carving a crooked path through what had once been Iroquois hunting grounds. The native peoples called it Cuyahoga, which early settlers understood to mean Crooked River. Whether that was accurate or not, no one could say. But the name stuck. And in time, so did the people. By the 1800s, Cleveland had grown from a muddy frontier post to a manufacturing hub. Rail lines, canals, and steamships turned it into a vital artery of American industry. Steel, coal, oil, rubber, chemicals. If it was made, refined, or burned, you could find it in Cleveland. And the river carried it all. It became, in the words of one local historian, a working river. That was supposed to be a compliment. But by the early 20th century, the Cuyahoga wasn't so much working as dying. Every factory along its banks had a pipe. Those pipes poured out everything imaginable: paint thinners, oils, solvents, grease, cooling water, dyes, ash. On hot days, the stench rolled through the streets like fog. Rats floated belly up in the shallows. The water itself turned thick and sluggish like motor oil. People avoided it. Boats chugged slowly through the sludge, careful not to stall. There were no fish, no birds, no swimmers, just oil slicks and quiet warnings not to throw a match. Because sometimes it burned. The first river fire happened in 1868, but it wouldn't be the last. The most catastrophic came in 1952, when sparks from a passing train ignited debris under a trestle bridge. The flames reached 5 stories high and caused over $1 million in damage. It charred the bridge, set adjacent buildings alight, and blocked traffic for days. Afterward, the city cleaned up a little, but not much. Everyone accepted the pollution as a side effect of progress. The factories gave people jobs. The river took the waste. That was the deal. And then came June 22nd, 1969. It was a Sunday morning. A train passed over the bridge near Campbell Road on Cleveland's southeast side. Below it, the river drifted past, slow and sticky. The fire marshal would later say that it wasn't clear what started it. A stray spark from the train, maybe, or just the sun hitting a patch of concentrated oil. Either way, something ignited the surface. The flames weren't dramatic, not this time. They reached maybe 10 or 15 feet high. The fire department responded quickly, and within 20 minutes it was out. No injuries. Minimal damage. It didn't even make the front page. But Carl Stokes noticed. Stokes had become the mayor of Cleveland 2 years earlier, the first black mayor of a major American city. He was brilliant, charming, and fiercely pragmatic. He understood politics, and more than that, he understood people. He knew that the river wasn't just an embarrassment, it was a warning. He invited the press to see the damage up close. He didn't try to spin it. He stood on the scorched bridge, the river gurgling black beneath his feet, and he said flatly, "This shouldn't happen. Not here." not anywhere. Stokes didn't just see fire on the water. He saw the future, and it scared him. At the time, no major federal laws governed water pollution. States and cities set their own rules, and most of them, especially in industrial areas, turned a blind eye. Factories dumped waste because it was cheaper than disposing of it properly. Cities dumped sewage because treatment plants were outdated or underfunded. Everyone knew it. No one talked about it. Until that summer. Because that's when Time magazine ran the story. The image was striking. Flames curling over the surface of the water. Black smoke billowing behind a trestle bridge. The caption read, "The incredible pollution of Lake Erie." Though the photo was actually from the larger 1952 fire, the article focused on the recent blaze, and the message was clear. America's cities were drowning in their own filth. The story hit a nerve. Letters poured into city halls. Reporters showed up from across the country. Environmental groups launched campaigns. Activists rallied. In college dorms and church basements, people began organizing. For the first time, the environment wasn't just a rural issue. It wasn't just about parks or forests. It was urban, it was personal, and it was political. The river fire had turned Cleveland into a symbol of what America had become, and what it could no longer afford to be. By April 1970, momentum had become a movement. That month, over 20 million Americans took part in the first Earth Day. It was one of the largest public demonstrations in U.S. history. In schools, students held mock funerals for the Cuyahoga. In parks, activists passed out flyers. On the steps of the Capitol, leaders gave speeches. The message was everywhere. This can't go on. That same year, Congress passed the National Environmental Policy Act. President Richard Nixon signed it with little fanfare. He wasn't known for his environmentalism, but he understood public pressure. And in December 1970, the Environmental Protection Agency was created. 2 years later, the Clean Water Act became law. Suddenly, the government had the power and the funding to hold polluters accountable. Cities were required to modernize their sewage systems. Industrial waste was regulated, and rivers, once seen as disposable, were finally given a chance to live. The Cuyahoga became the movement's poster child. And over time, it changed. Cleanup was slow, but steady. Companies that once dumped waste were fined or forced to change practices. New treatment plants were built. The city invested millions into restoring the riverbanks. Fish returned first: bluegill, bass, and trout. Then came herons. In the 2000s, bald eagles were spotted nesting near the water. Kayakers began paddling through downtown Cleveland. Restaurants opened with patios overlooking the river. In 1998, the Cuyahoga was designated an American Heritage River. By 2019, 50 years after the fire that ignited a movement, the river was declared clean enough for full recreational use. That summer, people paddled, swam, and fished to commemorate how far it had come. A river once used as an open sewer now flowed clear enough to support life. It had taken generations, and it had taken fire. But the story isn't just one of redemption. It's also a warning, because even now, rivers burn. In 2019, a canal in India burst into flames. In 2021, an oil pipeline leak caused the ocean to ignite in the Gulf of Mexico. Around the world, pollution still poisons water faster than it can be cleaned. And in the U.S., environmental protections remain a political battleground. The Cuyahoga burned not because of bad luck, but because of neglect. Because for too long, no one thought water was worth saving. And then, one day, it caught fire. Today, if you walk the banks near where the fire began, you'll see trees instead of smokestacks. The bridges are still there. So are some of the old factories, converted into apartments or art studios. But the river runs cleaner now. Children lean over the railings to watch fish swim below. Couples rent kayaks. Tourists snap photos. Most of them have no idea what this place once smelled like, or how close it came to dying. The fire of 1969 was small. It lasted less than half an hour. It injured no one. It didn't even destroy the bridge. But it lit something bigger. It showed a nation what happens when you ignore the obvious for too long. And it proved that sometimes, before things get better, they have to burn. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.